All right. And it looks like we're live. Everything looks pretty good on my end. Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of the Xbox Roundtable Podcast. This is show number 277, the place Sunday nights for Xbox-centric gaming talk and so much more from around the game industry. I'm Invader, and I am happy to be back here tonight. We took last Sunday off for the long weekends, but we're back at it, and we certainly need to catch up on, well, a few things. Quite a few things, actually, especially with the whole Microsoft Activision FTC trial. I know that there's a lot to kind of delve in there, believe me, I know. But, there's some interesting little tidbits there to certainly discuss. Also, price hikes are hitting the Xbox Series consoles, and Game Pass. We'll give our thoughts on that. And it appears that Xbox is teaming up with People Can Fly on a new project. Ooh, dang, I wonder what that could be. Well, we will discuss all that and so much more. But first up, let's go to the intros. Starting off with Crusader. Hey, man, happy to see you. How you been?
I'm back at long last. I'm good. I was on vacation last 2 weeks. Went and if people didn't see, I got to swim with they are called short claw river otters. I got to go to a nature preserve and swim with them, and that was probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my life.
Nice, nice. Whenever I think of otters, I think of that South Park episode with the Nintendo Wii, and then there's like otters that took over the earth. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, and it's hilarious. It's like the otters, they're debating over like which form of science is the correct science, and it's supposed to be that like science has become religion. Yeah, I know. It's a great episode.
Oh yeah, for wide variety of things. It's just so wacky, so wacky. I agree. But hey, it's great to have you back, my friend. Love your perspective. Moving on down here, Eric Shockley. Hey, buddy, been a little while. How's things? And
Oh,
not.
hey.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been a minute. Been 2 weeks since we had our nice holiday right in between. But yeah, ready to get into these topics. Catch up on where we left off with the court case. Figured we'd have a result by now, but guess we probably got to wait another 24 hours. People think so, but we'll get into it.
Agreed. Yeah, it's time's a ticking on that. Very curious to see how things go, but we will touch on that very, very soon. Moving on down, Centurion, hold it down the fort the last few weeks. How you been doing, pal?
I've been doing pretty good, man. Just playing some games. I am trying to play Mad Max, but for whatever reason, maybe I just missed the train on that game when it first came out because this is my first time playing it. I can't get myself to finish the game because I feel like it's just way too damn repetitive. So I just kind of been dabbling around in ESO because I made the joke on Gaming Beyond the Box. I'll make it here too. Like I thought only Xbox could make bad games, but it turns out that everybody can make bad games, including like Respawn with Jedi Survivor. There was a mechanic in that game that was so damn broken that it was just disappointing. Like, I mean, I went into Jedi Survivor completely excited, and by the time I completed the game, I was just like, wow, that I was not expecting to feel just a little bit disappointed when I finished playing the game. Um, and that was also after coming off of playing Gollum and having that game broken. So I think it's just completely ironic that everybody was trashing Redfall for having optimization issues and like frame and the fact it came out at 30 FPS, but the game ran. The mechanics were there. But for whatever reason, that game got totally trashed until obviously Gollum saved him for that. But I just love how nobody really talked about the fact that there was a major game mechanic that was so broken in Jedi Survivor that even Respawn acknowledged it in a tweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Gollum. I mean, the team behind Gollum doesn't look like
they don't have jobs anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, sad in one way, but yeah, that game was a flaming turd. Sorry to say.
Yeah.
but I don't need to tell you that, Sen.
Oh, I know. I know. I gave it the old college try. I gave it a fighting chance. I looked past a lot of things, but when your save file gets corrupted 45 minutes near the end of the game and you're just like, hey, guess what? You either restart the game or you just don't finish it. I'm like, well, that's not getting finished.
Sounds like me in Borderlands 2, but that's neither here or there, I guess. But yeah, man, always good to talk with you. Can't wait for your perspectives. Next up, the General in the house, General MLD. What are you saying, my friend?
Hey, yeah, doing pretty good. It's been a good week of gaming here. Finally picked up Ori and the Blind Forest. Just beat that earlier. Now I'm on the sequel. Yeah, like I play Metroidvania games like on occasion, and finally picked it up. It's as good as people say it is. Like I'm a little. It sucks I had to wait this long in order to experience it, but that I did, and I love it. So yeah, that's been me this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, truth is, we only have so much time to, dedicate to games, and you have to focus, right? So a lot of the time things get pushed back. But that's a really, I mean, I ended up being the first game, and it is something special. I will say that. So I think you're in for a treat with the second one.
Oh yeah, I just started it, and you can tell there's some differences, like boss battles, and there's more ways to attack enemies now. So it's welcome additions. It builds on the first game. So it is nice though that because I waited, I can now play both games back to back. So that is a nice feeling.
I need to get Gareth back on the show. He was always, the soundtrack composer. Man, very, very interesting fella. Loved his talk about Ori and whatnot. But yeah, guys, before we dive into things, I know some of you are curious, about a few things as to why, I've been away for so much. I guess I'll kind of touch on it. I know it's unusual since I'm a regular fixture here, but well, back in May, I got married. So, that's kind of a big thing. So I took up some time. And also I recently moved into a new house. So it's been a whirlwind of things. And soon I'll be gone for a few weeks. Actually, I'll be going on my honeymoon. So I guess it just makes sense to you all now. That said, the show is, will still be happening on schedule with Centurion taking the helm. And guess what? We've got an interview lined up at the end of July with a couple of really cool guests from an awesome indie studio. So you have a lot to look forward to towards the end of the month. But yeah, I mean, that's my own little update. I just wanted to, let you guys know. No alarms, I swear. Also, as you know, we're on many different platforms. I usually talk about that at the beginning of the show. But hey, just to let you guys know, we're now out on, Threads, Meta's new Twitter clone. And hey, I like being on different platforms, so you can follow us there, TXR_podcast. You guys know the drill by now. You guys know the drill, but you can find us there if you want to follow us on there. Because hey, I like being everywhere. I like plastering the TXR microphone any place that I can. All right, gentlemen, I don't want to waste any time, so let's get right into things. And we have a lot of various things to get updated on with regards to the whole Activision FTC trial. Court documents revealed many things, including, we got to look at some further Microsoft acquisition targets. Microsoft suggesting that it could spend Sony out of business, which is quite interesting, being a little bold there, Microsoft, and even the judge grilling the FTC on some stuff. So some very telling and interesting things. Now, I know everyone, well, for the most part, wants to chime in on different aspects of this, but Centurion, you've been doing a very good job of keeping everybody up to date with things on your own channel. Why don't you take it away from here, my friend? Why don't you lead us off? Where really should we begin on this? Because there's been a lot of information kind of, going around here the past couple of weeks.
That was my question, is where do we start, man? I mean, like literally like this whole ordeal of Activision trying to be acquired by Microsoft has literally turned into the days of our lives soap opera. We've seen tears, we've seen anger, we've seen excitement. I mean, where do we really begin? Let's just start with the fact that once again, Phil Spencer shows why he is an awesome leader of Xbox, and this isn't that kiss-ass moment. This is again, Phil Spencer likes to get out in front of problems and take them head on. He doesn't do some pre-recorded videotaped disposition that gets played in front of the court like some YouTube video. He actually was physically there, and he went toe to toe with the FTC's lawyer, and in my opinion, schooled that lawyer a little bit, because we all love how the lawyer tried to insinuate that Microsoft is basically giving Activision a payment to somehow get ahead in the gaming industry. And Phil Spencer is like, it's not a payment, it's an investment. It's like buying a house. You're investing in your future. Same with Xbox and Microsoft. We are investing in Activision, and we are investing in our future and what Activision can do for that future. And just other things with the FTC, like literally asking Phil Spencer 5 or 6 different freaking ways the same damn question. I mean, like, how many different ways can you ask if Xbox plans to take Call of Duty away from PlayStation? Like, they were trying to play the game of gotcha with Phil Spencer somehow answering the question in a different way when he answered this question the same damn way 4 or 5 times before. I mean, like, literally, it has been watching the FTC almost like falter at trying to do their job. Like, I mean, if you guys didn't hear, the FTC even insinuated to the judge, like, what if Xbox has a Christmas skin on Call of Duty that's not available on PlayStation? What if? Did you guys not do your homework on what PlayStation has been doing with the whole custom skins on PlayStation and custom XP gain on PlayStation? That's on Call of Duty. What about with Destiny 2, exclusive raids, exclusive guns, exclusive? Did you guys by some chance like forget to even look at what PlayStation was doing? So let's just say the whole FTC shenanigans at this whole event at the federal court has been absolutely insane to watch. But in my opinion, I really do feel very strongly that Xbox has made a really damn good case. They were able to really hold their ground and kind of like tackle every argument thrown their way. The FTC's chief economist was made to look like a real idiot on the stand because he did not have as much data as Microsoft's economist or financial expert, whatever you want to call him. I think her name was Beth Wilkinson, the one that Microsoft hired. She did a lot of really good data analysis to show that how many people really play Call of Duty, how many hours they play Call of Duty. She really broke it down, and the judge actually preferred the data that Microsoft presented versus the data that the FTC presented, because it was like the FTC only presented enough data to somehow drive the narrative that Xbox was incentivized to make Call of Duty exclusive, when I mean, like, it was just like you're almost like controlling the narrative by not using all the data in front of you. And she asked the Mr. Robbins or whatever his name was, the FTC's financial expert, on why he didn't look at the data. And he's like, oh, I didn't look at it. He didn't have a real answer. As a matter of fact, the entire time he was on the stand, he was very evasive. That was according to Tom Warren and other journalists there, that he would like dance around questions, be very evading in his answers. And it got to the point where the judge was straight up asking him to answer these questions. And the judge was also at times cutting off the FTC because they were trying to ask Phil Spencer to make commitments right there on the stand, like they were negotiating for PlayStation's future right there in the courtroom, when like that's not the FTC's place to negotiate, it's to regulate. But I really feel strongly that Microsoft has really made a good case for everything. I look forward to seeing what the judge is going to tell us, whether it's tomorrow or at least hopefully by the end of next week, because we all know July 18th is coming very quickly. And like what really a lot of people need to really accept is that if by some chance this preliminary injunction is granted by the judge, I mean, in my opinion, it has a snowball's chance in hell, but you never know. If it's granted, Microsoft plans to walk away. Bobby Kotick plans to walk away. Microsoft forks out $3 billion. But in my opinion, the damage has been done to Sony. The world has been completely shown on how Sony conducts itself, how they act, and also what Microsoft plans to do in the future. It is gloves off. At this point, Microsoft is done screwing around, playing kumbaya at the campfire. They have pretty much decided to pour gasoline in that campfire, and they are at this point suiting up for war, because we have already seen in the Xbox showcase, which knocked Sony's showcase out of the water. It was the savior for Jeff Keighley's Summer of Games, because that was, in my opinion, the best show shown at the whole event that took place last June. It basically shows that Microsoft has made deals with other companies, and they are being more embracive to making third-party deals, because they realize at this point, if this deal gets blocked by the FTC, this is what they're going to have to do to basically rub Sony in the dirt.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that got said. I mean, I know I'm not the only one on the panel, but like there was just so much that kind of came out. I was kind of in and out on things. But it was very telling that, like, again, the judge was even grilling the FTC on things, and like they're, basically it was just kind of like you guys are obviously siding with Sony here.
Right. And here's the funniest quote, in my opinion, that I've already brought up in other videos. The judge legitimately said on the stand, and the judge said to the FTC, like in front of the proceeding, why does Sony not make PlayStation Plus more competitive and appealing to consumers? By putting games like God of War Ragnarok, or she called it Thor's game, which was hilarious. And like, why is it that they have not put games like that in their service to compete with what Xbox is doing? And that is all stemmed around somehow Jim Ryan trying to spin this magical idea that he has talked to people in the industry, and that they unanimously agree that they do not like Game Pass because it's value destructive. Well, like I outlined, why did Square Enix launch Outriders in there? Why is Capcom launching Exoprimal later this week in the service? Talk to Squanch Games, talk to the guy over at Football Manager, and also Descenders. Like, a lot of developers and publishers have really enjoyed what Xbox has done in the reach they have been able to give their software to people across the gaming industry. And in my opinion, Game Pass is such a valuable product and a viable product that literally 2K Games came back for a third damn time to put Grand Theft Auto 5 in there.
Yeah. Actually, I was very surprised and happy, very pleasantly surprised to see Grand Theft Auto 5 back in there, because I want another shot at that. I mean, hopefully it doesn't leave like soon.
Dude.
But
so have you read the numbers on that? Every time Grand Theft Auto 5 goes into the service, revenue goes up, and every time the game leaves the service, it starts topping in the charts again for sales of Grand Theft Auto. So it proves that people that get the game in Game Pass spend money on the game, and when the game leaves Game Pass, they buy the damn game. Imagine that.
Surprise. General MLD, pal, I mean, I'm curious on your thoughts. I mean, obviously, you've been keeping up to date with all the trial news, going off and on. Like, I don't know, what's your thoughts on all the things? Because again, there was a lot, the FTC is getting grilled by the judge. And there's even some just interesting court filings coming out, various documents that, I'm pretty sure we weren't supposed to see, but hey, they're out there. I don't know, give us your take.
Okay, well, first, I think the court case, it went as well as it could have got for Xbox there. They did an excellent job making their case. FTC, not so much. Not that I'm complaining, but it's clear they didn't do their homework on this one, and their choice witnesses paled in comparison to what Xbox brought to the table, especially what was mentioned before with the two economists, where the one for Xbox actually knew what they were talking about. But I digress here. So the court documents, including well, first I want to talk about something like the the big leak, how I wouldn't say it's a leak, but where it shows everything that Xbox was considering to buy.
No, that was a huge leak. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
never supposed to be public. That is massive, massive problems business-wise.
Right. So that's like what? Oh, that was about over 100 developers, some publishers in there. Some validated what a lot of people wanted. Like a lot, like apparently, like the final list. It was a few of them, but I think IO Interactive was like among the ones most likely to get bought up in the future, which to me makes sense. They get the Hitman games back catalog added into Game Pass. They get the new published game. Assuming it goes well, I would like to think that, like, I would predict that if this upcoming game goes well, published wise, they're going to pick them up like 100%. Like, if this is what these guys want to do, creatively speaking, like Unleashed, like that's not a Hitman kind of game, I think that they're going to be a popular pickup. But yeah, so the ones that stood out to me was Paradox. They're the ones that make all these strategy games like Stellaris and yeah, all the other ones I can't even think about right now. But Paradox was a good buy. That'd be good for their PC efforts. Sega was a pretty notable one that stood out, and people talked about it because it was rumored with Sega for a few years now. Like, that rumor refuses to die. And we finally got confirmation that Xbox, there's this email where there was like Phil Spencer asking for permission to approach Sega and do like the intent to buy them. And you get details like that their catalog it has worldwide potential to benefit Game Pass. They'll benefit PC because they got PC developers as well. It'll help them in Japan. Like, some pretty solid logic that the Xbox fans have been saying for some time. How close Sega and Xbox are with the Persona games on day one Game Pass. Yakuza games are on Game Pass. That partnership that Sega and Microsoft are doing, that we don't really know what it is, but they want to help build a super game in the future. They got a cloud deal with Microsoft. Like, they're getting it feels like some kind of long courting process, and Xbox is slowly just planting the seeds with Sega. So that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, I wouldn't expect it anytime soon because you got to let the dust settle. Whether we'll find out, I guess, sooner rather than later about the Activision thing. But I feel like Sega would be like maybe a couple of years from now, like late 2024, early 2025. That's my own personal prediction, because in the end, I think Xbox knows that they need the Japanese content hole. They got to fill that in order for them to truly break some stereotypes and negative stigmas to truly evolve as a brand. So that's my own take on that. So a lot of studios though, a lot of studios that they've been keeping eyes on, and they made clear that they're not going to stop making acquisitions. They got the money, they got the capital, they want to grow. You need you can't have any more dry spells like the Xbox launch or 2022. That can't happen again. They know that. So the more developers you got, the more chances you got of filling in these gaps. But more importantly, bringing new subscribers to Game Pass and holding those subscribers with every new game release that goes on to it. So it's clear that Microsoft is very much all in based on that massive leak of so many studios that they're looking at right now. Now, another thing that caught my eye was now I think PlayStation fanboys they jumped on this one. It's where it was an email in 2019 where Matt Booty said it. He said that Microsoft is prepared to send Sony out of business. Now, first, I don't think it's even relevant because this was in 2019. If this was said after the intention to buy Activision, if it was said then I think the FTC had some ammo there. But because it was 2019, they argued that it was a different time. It was before Xbox pivoted their strategy, because obviously with Call of Duty, they want to keep it multi-platform. Like, they made it time and time again very clear that they want to maximize their profits, and that means selling it on PlayStation. Now, if PlayStation is spent out of business, all that extra profit goes away. So that right there, it proves that that saying is outdated, because they need PlayStation to be in the business to make money off them. So times have changed, their tactics have changed. But regardless, though, I don't even see that as anti-competitive there. I see that as pro-competitive. People saying Xbox needed to step up Well, okay, they're stepping up. And now people are dictating specific criteria on how they should catch up. Like they should copy Sony's strategy and do nothing else. They shouldn't deviate from that whatsoever. No, you don't get to do that. Xbox, they get to forge their own path. Microsoft, they got their own plans. They're doing things a little bit differently. And it was pointed out that they can't compete with Sony's rules. They got to play their own game, because PlayStation, they get exclusive deals a lot cheaper because of the higher console install base. All they got to do is pay for the revenue that would be generated by Xbox. But if Xbox were to outbid them, like people say, oh, why can't Xbox just outbid Sony? They're a $1 trillion corporation. Well, it doesn't work like that. Like, yes, Xbox, Microsoft, they got the money, but you got to be responsible with it. It would cost Xbox, Microsoft, like many times the same amount to get the same exclusivity deal, because they have to compensate for PlayStation's console base and how bigger it is compared to Xbox. So it just makes more economic sense and more long-term sense to just buy the publisher, deny Sony the ability to make these deals, and just you get your long-term support for Xbox right there. And that's what they're doing. They're competing their way. So, but regardless, even if they got Bethesda, and even if they get Activision Blizzard, PlayStation is still posting record sales and profit. So I see this as a win-win. So Microsoft, they're doing the spending, but no one's going out of business here. They're not negatively impacting Sony to that point, because again, they're enjoying a growth phase of their own. So I feel like the judge that came across well. The judge sees this, because it was mentioned before with you guys. Like the judge, she knows this is about consumers, not about Sony protecting PlayStation's market share, and she made that known a few times to the FTC. So I feel like the odds are pretty stacked in Xbox's favor. Again, like all the FTC really has to do is cast like a shadow of a doubt. But even then, their arguments are pretty flimsy. And I just hope the judge responds back in due time, because that deadline is coming up. There's a lot of you could feel the anxiousness online. Like Xbox fans are just kind of like we're holding our breath, kind of like we're a little anxious. We want to know how the future of gaming is going to be shaped based on what this judge is going to say. And hopefully it's Monday. If not, hopefully later in the week, but it has to be next week. Otherwise it gets tricky with the whole deadline, the July 18 deadline approaching. But I digress. I think I'm pretty positive. I'm cautiously optimistic. Like, part of me wants to hold back from outright bragging, because hey, you never know, because we thought the CMA was going to go a certain way, but at least this judge seems pretty fair. Like, she seemed pretty impartial. She was willing to listen, and even though she's not a gamer, she made a genuine effort to understand the industry and both sides of the argument. So I'll respect whatever decision she does, but I think she'll make the right one that will benefit us, benefit Xbox ecosystem, and everyone that enjoys it. So yeah, that's me.
All right. So the date tomorrow that we have to keep in mind is basically tomorrow.
Because I've also heard that there's like an appeal period of 5 days. So, and she's aware of the 18th deadline. So ideally she would write it soon and submit it soon, because the opposing party that loses, they need time to file that 5-day appeal process. So that's the logic I've been seeing online.
Damn. Well, I mean, I'll be keeping my eyes on social media tomorrow. That's for sure. I mean, I have a busy day ahead of me, but I'll be checking up to make sure what's going on. Like you said, MLD, it could either be a day of celebrations, if you're in the Xbox camp, or it could be postponing things even more. And then, like you said, the waters get kind of murky there. So time will tell. Now, Shockley, I know you've been patiently waiting to chime in here. What do you think about the updates going on now with the whole Activision FTC trial? I know that there's a lot of different things to kind of talk about here, but what's really standing out to you the most, Eric?
Yeah, oh, sorry, my mic was off there for a second. Yeah, it was interesting. All the different. I think what Crusader said, like the document that probably no one should have seen. They could probably create issues or relationships or partnerships of like, hey, you were, looking to buy us or whatever. But or it may it may have some of those publishers or devs like saying, oh, okay, didn't know Microsoft was interested in us. Maybe we do want to, cash in. But the one thing I found interesting was the whole line that everybody got stuck on was like the Matt Booty line of, hey, he wants to spin Sony out of business. Something he was kind of saying off the cuff with one of I think the CFO that handles their financials, who they're going to purchase or who, where they're going to spend their money. But, and everybody was hanging on to that, like, look, see, they just want to monopolize the market or they want to push Sony out of the market, although Sony's doing the same thing. If you just look at it, like you being, like Phil kind of had a point from their perspective before they bought Bethesda. You look at Sony's position, they already were killing it first party wise. They already had other great relationships and partnerships with Japanese devs that you just naturally would get exclusive. And on top of that, when Xbox's first parties is trying to like get something out, you're gonna like lock up every major, AAA game coming out of Bethesda, one of the biggest publishers. And then on top of that, one of those games being the first, I don't know if it was the first IP that Todd's ever made. But like when Bethesda is one of their biggest IPs they're ever going to deliver since at least the last Fallout. Like Xbox can't afford to wait a year to get that to their fan base. On top of, hey, you're locking up Final Fantasy that finally came to Xbox with 13 and 15, and now you're taking that away. And it's they never had it, but like you're locking those down, which had just gone third party, on top of locking down the Final Fantasy 7. So it's just like Xbox, that's the thing that we've kind of shown and proven, that third party is almost more important than having first party. Nintendo's learned that the hard way, and it's taken them a long, past 2 decades to figure that out. Like they struggle outside of Wii's Lightning in a Bottle without third party. First party, you could have bangers like the N64, didn't matter, sold roughly 32 million or so. Was not really a commercial success, even though as kids you probably felt that way because all the kids had one. But Xbox was, so I think we just sold the numbers. They sold like 58 million for the Xbox One, and virtually probably one of the worst first party outings. I mean, the Dreamcast was alive for what, a year and a half or so, and it had probably better collective first party output for its short time. But third party carries it, because if you think about it, would you rather have, sure, Wii U on exclusives versus the Xbox One? That's probably a fair fight. But if you got chosen, if you got told as a kid, which one did you want, an Xbox One or a Wii U? Good, pray for that sad soul that got picked the Wii U over like an Xbox One, because Xbox One at least got all these amazing games, all the big third party, Division, Destiny, name it, all the From Software games, all these Game of the Year games that went to this system. So even as much of a failure everybody says is one of the worst consoles, it's still got amazing games that other consoles like a Wii U, a GameCube just didn't get. Like, so there's a reason why it still sold 58 million, because it had strong third-party support. So when you start locking that away to a point where the one's just trying to get back on track and is still getting outsold 2-1, and they're just trying to get something out, and then you're going to lock all the major. Think about it this year, Bethesda. If they didn't buy Bethesda, and people were saying, well, they should just outbid them. I'm like, but you understand, if for them to outbid, they have to pay way more, where it doesn't make financial sense at that point. Think of the last one, Rise of the Tomb Raider. They paid $100 million for that, and in today's money, that's pretty much equal to the purchase of Ninja Theory, and that was in 2014 when they announced that. So, and that was a lot. People didn't know how the console gen was going to end, so they probably didn't have to pay near as much back then, coming right off of the cusp of the 2013 disaster announcement, because hey, look what the 360 did. Okay, well, they're going to be, Sony's not going to run away with the whole generation, right? But then we saw what happened. So for them to lock away Sony, because Bethesda wanted that to happen one way or the other. They took the purchase, but they needed the funding. Like you saw Pete Hines kind of drew that out. Hey, it's easier for us to, and that's why they did those other deals that you saw with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, because they could focus, they could get some extra funding. So they were going to make that deal with someone. That was pretty much in their cards. They're making the deal one way or the other. So for Microsoft, if Microsoft doesn't come in there and make that 1-year deal and outbid them probably to an astronomical number, then guess what? Think about it. They would have had Final Fantasy, the next biggest, thing, IP with Starfield, and then Spider-Man, just to follow that up all in the summer when you didn't have anything else to play. Just think about that whole PlayStation lineup. They had, all the great third parties, Dead Space, Diablo, and then they followed that up. Like Xbox wouldn't have been able to afford to just come out there. Hey, we have Forza this year. Like Forza Motorsport's not even a Horizon, so it's not like we can even say, hey, it's like a new venue. It's Forza Horizon, so it's going to be maybe they'll throw in some new tracks, but it's the same. You're not exploring open world. So that whole notion of they want to outspend Sony out of or spin Sony out of business. Sony's trying to accomplish the same thing from their position. So I just thought that.
Oh, Shockley. I think we lost Shockley, guys.
Oh, my bad.
There you are.
My bad.
Yeah, continue, pal. Continue.
But yeah, just going back to that, Sony wants to outspin them out of business just as much. They just didn't get it released in an email. They're not on trial, so their documents were getting completely, scrubbed. But yeah, it's just going through all of that that we saw come out. It was just interesting to see all the different deals that Sony was doing, or hey, they were okay with the deal before, and then now when Jim tried to use this as a tool to get, which was smart on his plate, to get Bethesda games back, and then Phil's like, yeah, that's not what we talked about, so I don't know what you're trying to to pull. So that's what I always find funny is everybody's saying, well, after this 10-year deal, they're just going to make it COD exclusive. Obviously, Sony didn't think that, because they know how important it is. 800 million that they get in revenue, I think, a year or whatever it is, something ridiculous. Obviously, they were okay with it because they were about to sign the deal. If that was also getting them, other perks, Bethesda games, and but they would have been upset if they were losing COD, because that's an annual stream. Bethesda's not putting out bangers every year like they can count on with COD as far as revenue. So obviously Sony's trusting that, hey, after they know financially it'd be stupid, they would lose money, it wouldn't make any sense. Just like Microsoft or Phil was saying, it's an investment. If they were to take COD off of PlayStation, it's not just a transfer. Then they are kind of paying, because they're not going to get equal value out of that investment. So, but I think what's his name from Tweaktown? I forget the. He's been really good on the.
Eric Strickland is his name.
Yeah, Strickland. I think he just released a thing on COD, because Bobby Kotick did say that Mobile was actually like, I think mobile and PC, or maybe it was just mobile, was like half of their actual COD like revenue. So that was interesting to see that. Hey, I think PlayStation was like 16% and Xbox was 8%, which, given that they're outsold about 2-1, that lines up perfectly. So really, I mean, if they did want to go that route and cut out PlayStation, but again, they would be taking a hit, so it wouldn't really make financial sense. But they can really point at it like, hey, this is a mobile play. Like, look, we're actual when you look at COD's revenue plus King, so it actually makes sense. Whereas a lot of people were saying, thought that was just kind of a BS excuse for them to say, hey, this is, about mobile, because we can just say that, but it's really about COD and hitting Sony where it hurts. At this point, it's about not losing 10%. It's another play like that, like where people were saying, why don't you just outbid Sony for Bethesda? Well, they did. They bought Bethesda. So they did outbid them. They just outbid them for eternity. And then same thing with Activision. It's like, hey, you're getting pushed around by the publisher at this point, and you're going to lose 10% of Call of Duty revenue? Cool. How about we just buy you and we don't lose that 10% revenue? We get all the revenue, plus we get the revenue from PlayStation, 30% cut from that. So it's just keeping themselves in that position where if you look at their tiers, they're right above Nintendo and, total gaming revenue in the industry. So it's just keeping them as a relevant player in the game. So, but yeah, that's all I got to say on that. I think I touched a little bit on the last proceedings, but hopefully we'll get an answer tomorrow, or at least something. Yes, no, and I'm sure it'll be fun and chaos in the streets on Twitter. So
it's gonna be something, Eric. It's gonna be something. Again, I'll be very curious come the morning what gets put out. No, very well said. You made some really interesting points there. Crusader, I know you just you want to touch on it lightly, I suppose. I mean, you're kind of like me. You're kind of like me because I've been in and out the past few weeks, so I get it, but you got any 2 cents to throw our way?
So, number one, the one thing I would take away from I am unmuted, right?
Yes,
People can hear me?
that's
All right,
correct.
yeah. The one thing I would say is that that list of potential acquisitions, right? That is companies that Microsoft's interested in. I will say that if Activision goes through, expect less of the large publishers from that list because regulators probably won't let them after Activision. That's just how it is, right? Like, I don't see a world where Microsoft buys Bethesda, Sega, and Activision, period, end of story. Like, I don't, right? If Activision, this preliminary injunction is granted and the deal falls through, then I would suspect you would see them go after a Sega or a Paradox or something like that, right? And that's something to keep in mind. That document leaking is massively crazy that leaked. And that's about the most interesting thing for me from this trial. It is becoming pain to talk about this. I just want it to end. I so much want this to end. Either way, I want to move on and talk about things. I would love a world where all of the Call of Duties, all the old ones, are on Game Pass, and I can go through and play those campaigns, download them right away. Really excited for that potential. But I just want the conversations about this to end. And so my 2 cents are, that it is very interesting to see the scope of who they were targeting and things like that. Also, one thing to note with IO Interactive, it is unknown if Microsoft is still publishing that game. It looks like they are, based on the documents. But that was a big thing that both Jez Corden, who initially leaked Project Dragon, which is now called Project Fantasy, and Jeff Grubb, they were unsure if Microsoft was still involved with that at this point because they had old documentations from when it was being pitched to Microsoft, and it looked like Microsoft had accepted it, but they hadn't had any, further information on that in a very long time. So neither of them were sure, and Jez is still kind of unsure. So, but that is very interesting to see that, like, oh, it looks like that could be the case. So that's cool. Other than that, yeah, it was really interesting to hear about all of that, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I was surprised personally about the whole, like, we had talked about this earlier, but the whole, like, Square Enix, like, there was
yes,
a
yes,
portion of it that, it looked like things were actually in advanced stages at one point.
yes, and to note, so Jez had heard about that and had heard about Bungie. If everyone recall the rumor when uh, Microsoft was looking at Bungie, and then Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie, came out and said it wasn't true, except now it turns out that it is true because we have court case documents that say that they were in negotiations. But yeah, the whole thing with Square Enix was evidently it wasn't the entirety of Square Enix for the most part that like they were negotiating with towards the end. It was specifically their Western division. So it would have been the Crystal Dynamics and what's the other studio? They make Deus Ex. Shoot, why can't I think of what they're called?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Eidos?
Eidos, yeah, Eidos. Yeah, it was more centered around them. The Bungie thing was really interesting though because it actually gave us some insight into some Bungie stuff. The reason why Microsoft actually passed on Bungie was the churn rate. I don't know if people know what the term churn rate means, but the churn rate of Destiny is incredibly high, and they considered it a problem. Churn is so let's say you have 15 million players, 1 month, and the next month you have 16 million, right? Your churn rate is how many players you actually are losing versus new players being gained within that 15 to 16, right? Because just because you've gone up 1 million players doesn't mean you've actually you might have gone up 5 million new players and you lost 4 million old players. Does that make sense? And that's what churn is in the industry. And that's true with like you'll hear them discuss the Game Pass churn rates. You'll hear them discuss like Netflix churn rates. And it's basically like how many users you're losing month to month. In addition to like how many you're gaining. It's a very interesting rate to track. And evidently Bungie's churn rate for Destiny is astronomically high. So like they do gain new players all the time, but that at some point that hits a cliff, and that they have to solve the churning of like players falling off versus new players coming on. And that was really interesting to hear that that's why they passed on Bungie, was that they felt that the churn rate was too big of a risk. But that was the only other interesting tidbit. I don't want to talk about like the actual Activision Blizzard acquisition.
Right.
I'm just gonna wait for news.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned Bungie too, because I mean, we were hearing, well, a little bit behind the scenes that, there was talk about Bungie. And I was like, nah, I mean, really, Bungie, especially since, they want to keep separate and go their own ways.
Yeah, that was the same thing with me. I was astounded that they were purchased by PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because they had constantly prided themselves with the fact that they were an independent studio. Like constantly since 2019. Well, and they were an independent studio before 2019, but that was like when they broke the chains of being published by Activision. Because they were never owned by Activision. They were merely had a 10-year publishing agreement. And like they were like, yeah, we are now a fully independent company, and we that is so important to us, and we're never going to go back again. And then they went back like, what is it, 2 years later, 3 years later?
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, there's been multiple studios, small and large, where, they, either didn't like Microsoft, Xbox, or, they had a, they had like a, a bad thing, games got canceled, or they prided themselves on independence, but then lo and behold, they get bought. Money talks, I guess. Same thing. I remember Insomniac Games saying the same thing, and then
Yep.
Sony acquired them not too long after. So just is what it is. But yeah, guys, I mean, we won't spent a lot of time on this. Spent like an hour talking about things.
Or do
Whoa.
you?
What was that?
Jesus Christ, my heart,
Mine too. Holy
my
moly.
chest.
Did we just see a mouse?
But
my God.
any as we're all gaining back our hearts there, our breaths, any final thoughts on the whole
Oh, no.
situation here, guys?
Yeah, fingers
Oh,
crossed.
I did want to ask
That's all.
Crusader.
Sure.
Does he? Do you think Jim's all of his stuff was pre-recorded?
Yes.
Do you think he would want to, have? I guess he maybe didn't really have a choice. But I wonder, thinking back now, did they want to actually make it hard for Microsoft to close this deal? Now thinking back, hey, well, if this deal, if we were the, basically the kink in the armor or whatever to stop this deal from happening, should we have just let it go through and we took the 10-year deal and we kept everything, or now the deal doesn't go through and look at all the other people that are on their plate that they're interested in purchasing? Think about them going after a Capcom, which is, just think of like how big Capcom is kind of, or a Square, just like stuff that's the stuff that would hurt them.
Yeah, like a lot of those things, right?
Like maybe we should let that go through.
I don't know that there is a single organization in the industry that could hurt PlayStation as much if they went exclusive as an Activision Blizzard, and that's why they're so resistant to this, because there is a chance that like Microsoft could do that. Now, every economic, like except for the FTC's economist, I can't say words, economist. Except for the CMA and FTC's economists, like everyone's like, yeah, no, Microsoft won't do this, won't pull it exclusive. But like Call of Duty, like the rate of money that Sony brings in from their, they also only take a 20% take on Call of Duty. That 20% take is probably more from Call of Duty alone than like Capcom, Square Enix, and Sega, what they make from those companies combined, right? Like that's just how it is. And so I don't think that there's a world where he's regretting. They might be regretting exactly how, like the argument that they proposed against this, and maybe they're regretting not signing a 10-year deal, but I find it hard to believe that they'd look at that list of acquisitions and go, yeah, because like Activision Blizzard going exclusive would be the worst thing that could happen to PlayStation, right? In terms of third party, that's just so much revenue lost. That being said, it would be so much revenue lost for Microsoft that it would probably make the entire deal untenable. So, looking at it from that perspective, it's just resistance to it was kind of nonsense, but so is not resisting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it really was a no-win situation from PlayStation, because if they did nothing, then there was a chance they could get screwed. If they resisted it, then they look like they look like how they look, and we've talked about how they look. They look terrible because a lot of what they're saying is nonsense, because there isn't a exceptionally good art like vocal argument to make, if that makes sense. And so they're in a lose-lose situation with this whole thing as a company.
All right, very well said there, Crusader. Yeah, guys, again, we'll see what happens and how everything unfolds over the next, well, let's say day. I hope something comes hopefully early tomorrow, and we can get some kind of clarity on things moving forward. But yeah, just have to wait a tiny bit longer. All right. Now, before we move on, guys, thank you all in the chat for joining us. We have quite the lively crew here in the chat. Great to see you all here. Guys, if you haven't done so already, smash the like button. And hey, share it out. Let everybody know that we are live and we're having a really awesome conversation here. And hey, if you're a new face, sub to the channel. We'd love to keep you around. All right. Let's move on to some other bits of news. Something a little different from the trial going on with the FTC. And a few weeks ago, Xbox announced that there would be price increases for both the Xbox Series consoles and Xbox Game Pass. I know, it sucks. This affects different regions, though console price will seemingly remain the same for now, at least in the US. Game Pass, though, will hike in the US from, I think, $9.99 to $10.99, so a buck more from the looks of things. I think things in Canada have already been hiked. Have to double check on that. Now, the head of communications for Xbox, Kari Perez, stated that they've adjusted their prices to reflect the competitive conditions in each market, which, I suppose, I can understand that. I mean, PlayStation did quite a while ago and so on. Other companies did too. And it seems that a lot of these announcements have just begun to come into effect over the last couple of days. Now, General MLD Bud, what do you think of these price hikes? Is this something that Xbox was forced to do because of the economics of the way things are going right now, or did they wait as long as they could? Because me personally, I think they held out for quite a while before they made these changes.
Yeah, that's right. I feel the same way. Now, I mean, to get out of the way, no one here is I'm certainly not celebrating this. Like, it's not. I'm not going to try and spin it or downplay it. I mean, it is what it is. It's a price increase, but I feel like context is very important. And because I have thought about this for a bit, and it does matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, I feel like Xbox, they did wait as long as they could to do this. I feel like it's a factor of just how much inflation's been a thing these last couple of years. But it's worth knowing that they waited. They did it after PlayStation did. I believe PlayStation did their console increase last year, and a little bit before the holiday shopping season. To me, that came across as a bit that was a little too convenient. Like, you did it right before the biggest spending spree of the year, whereas Xbox is doing their console price increase. That's during the summer. Yeah, and I mean, not as big of a. It doesn't seem like they're taking advantage as much. Like, they didn't do it like right before Starfield, or they didn't do it before Black Friday. They did it during the summer. So I feel like that is worth considering. That the market leader that with record profits did it first, whereas Xbox, despite their parent company being as rich as they are, they held out a little bit later. I feel like that's worth noting. Now, they also did that with Game Pass. This is more important because for context, because they did say they're not going to increase it after Activision Blizzard gets acquired. So that, to me, that kind of forced their hand, because if they did it like the next week or the next month or even in the next year, gaming media is going to pounce on that and say, "Oh, look, they increased Game Pass because they got Activision Blizzard. Look at them. Look, they're being anti-consumer. Look at that." I feel like if they're going to do it before. Now, of course, they took a PR hit. Like, they would have done it no matter what. But the fact that they did it beforehand, at least they take the hits now, but they avoid the hits later. So I feel like that does make a difference. Because I think they also did it because because of inflation, because Game Pass has been around now since 2017. Like, time really does fly. It really has been that long since the service was around, and the prices have been the same ever since. But over the years, the Game Pass deals got better. We're getting more day one games. Like, off the top of my head, you got Wulong Dynasty, MLB The Show, Atomic Heart, Plague Tale 2, and that's just the third-party games. Persona 5 Royal, we're getting Persona 3. First-party games like Forza Motorsport, Starfield. Like, these are all full-price games that we're getting day one on the service. And we didn't really get that in the early years of Game Pass. So I feel like and it's not really much of a big amount either to get really upset about. I mean, it's just $1 for Game Pass and $2 for Game Pass Ultimate. But based on what they're giving us, I feel like it's pretty reasonable. Like, if I do say so myself. Like, I myself have already played about, give or take, $400 in Game Pass games, and we're only in July. So I'm not going to sweat an extra $24. I still feel like even with this, Game Pass is still by far the best deal in gaming because no one else is doing what they do. Like, PlayStation will do the occasional day one indie game, but you don't see them doing anything day one with a higher budget third party game, or God forbid, a first party game. They won't do that. Only Xbox is doing that. So I feel like after 6 years, a couple dollars is pretty reasonable to me. Again, I can't stress this enough, especially with the games and the Game Pass deals that they're making to this day that have gone up over the years. So yeah, I think that's worth considering. It's inevitable. You got to be realistic here. You can't expect these prices to stay the same in 2030. Like, they would have to have gone up eventually. I'm just glad that they did it. They were the last ones to do it. And the quality of the service has gone up, which to me just justifies it. So yeah, that's my take. I mean, of course, again, no one's celebrating it, but given the circumstances, I'm just glad they did it when they did it, and they back it up with the value, especially if Activision gets acquired and we get the back catalog and newer games like Diablo 4 dropping on the service. That will really up that value prospect and make it an easier pill to swallow. Yeah, that's me.
Now, MLD chat wants to know how much Xbox is paying you.
I mean, does savings count? Like, again, $400 in 6 months, and I've only paid half a year of Game Pass Ultimate is $90. So, I mean, does that count? Because that to me is tangible.
Well, that whole influencer thing. I don't know if you caught that the past week or so. Xbox paying influencers.
Which is funny. Today I saw a picture. I think Gaz was putting that around. I saw a picture of one of the guys, Moriarty or whatever, Colin Moriarty. He was having an intimate home dinner with a PlayStation executive. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You guys seen that?
No, I didn't.
Either way, there was a picture that was going around today of like a big PlayStation guy, like having a picture of him with dinner with some PlayStation executive. And it's kind of like those gotcha moment, like, oh, look at that. Oh, so we can't do it, but you can? Oh, interesting there. Like,
yeah, Colin Moriarty can burn in hell. He personally attacked Lord Cognito today, made himself look like an asshole.
Oh boy! Doesn't Colin Moriarty run
Sacred Symbols?
Yeah, but isn't the one podcast that Cog hosts part of the Sacred Symbols network?
No, it was the fact that Colin Moriarty came on there and basically he got tripped up when he went on and said, "Oh, exclusives don't matter. I don't know why everybody's all upset that all these PlayStation games are going to be on other platforms. Exclusives don't matter," when he was talking about the PlayStation Showcase. Yeah. And Cog was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. You've been saying for years on your show that exclusives matter. Now all of a sudden exclusives don't matter?"
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Basically, he insinuated that Lord Cognito doesn't do his job right because he's too close to Xbox executives.
I need to look a little more into that. I was working today, so I did miss that part, but damn, that's
his podcast is literally called Sacred Symbols.
Well, right. Sacred Symbols and defining Duke, was that the podcast that they were on?
Well, Defining Duke is Matty Plays.
It's Mr. Matty Plays and Lord Cognito.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Lord Cognito replaced Jeremy Prenter, ACG.
Yeah.
And like Cogs, like they're all part of the same. They're part of Last Stand Media, which is Colin Moriarty's company.
I don't know about all that. All I do know is I have a lot of respect and admiration for Lord Cognito, and it has nothing to do with his success. It is because with how successful he has taken time out of his life to show me things and educate me on stuff I was completely unaware of, which speaks worlds to me. Meanwhile, Colin Moriarty is just over here with his better than thou attitude. So yeah, at this point, I have lost all respect for Colin Moriarty today.
Right. Overall, the point is that, like, since when, like, both sides have influencers, like both sides have people that are passionate about the brand, like that. That's why we're here. We're just, we're well, hey, we're just a bunch of gamers here, just enjoying the things we like here. But they make it seem like it's bad when we do it, but they do it, it's okay. Like, I mean, come on, like, it's a clear double standard.
Right. I mean, hey, I wish I got that big influencer bucks like everybody's suggesting, but guys, that's just not true. Not true at all.
Did your direct deposit not go through too? Because I've been trying to call the bank all day to find out where my money from Microsoft is.
Yeah, I'm calling Xbox customer service. They won't put me through to Phil Spencer.
It's supposed to be talked about after the show.
Phil told me that like it would consistently come in when I stopped yelling at them about consistency.
Oh boy. So it's gonna be a while then. All right, Crusader. Now, Centurion, I'll swing over to you now. I mean, focusing again on the price hikes here. I mean, do you agree with what MLD has been saying here with this topic, or you got anything to add to this?
No, I agree. Now, obviously, everybody brings up inflation. I do agree with the inflation thing a lot. And you know what? I'm never going to feed into the concept that $1 trillion company has to take less profits and because they're $1 trillion company and basically absorb a lot of the inflation. I came out and said that I was surprised that they haven't raised prices sooner, considering a lot of, like, in my industry, the industry I work in professionally, I've seen stuff almost like double in price. It's like insane how much stuff has gone up. So that's why I was like, kudos to the electronics companies. And at the time when I said kudos, PlayStation hadn't even raised the price yet. But now when the market leader decides to come in and say that it's okay for a price raise, other people are going to pay attention to see how that happens. Then we saw PlayStation do it. $70 games first, then they started raising the price of a console, and everybody was kind of like, okay, cool, no big deal. And so of course we saw also Nintendo with like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. One day the game is $60, next day it's $70, but they are still on a last generation console. There was no additional input on development of the game. It was literally a price hike for the sake of a price hike. The industry leader, PlayStation, showed that it was okay to do this. So yes, other people are going to follow. Now, Microsoft did hold out as long as they could. They waited until after the holiday season, as pointed out by General MLD, which is basically Microsoft using their trillions of dollars to choose the right time to do this, and they absorbed some of that cost. But like also General MLD mentioned, the licensing cost for some of these games that go into that go into Game Pass, the fact that there's a lot of third-party games going in there day and date, like look at Exo Primal, we're going to get Lies of P. They're like, in my opinion, the last half of 2023 is stacked for Game Pass, and that is right now. That's also not talking about titles that we don't even know exist yet that are going to show up in the service. They're going to be like surprises for us. But in my main opinion, one of the main reasons why we are starting to see price inflation with Xbox is partially because of Activision. And that isn't because Microsoft is buying them. That is because literally Bobby Kotick came in and said, we want more money from you or you won't have Call of Duty. So Microsoft, to keep some of these games on the Xbox console, Activision titles as a whole, they had to basically start giving more revenue to Activision and taking less revenue for themselves. Now I'm sorry, but when you're faced by one of the bigger publishers making this whole argument, what are other publishers doing behind the scenes? Like General MLD said earlier, PlayStation's able to make these exclusive deals for a much cheaper price because they have the bigger ecosystem. What exactly is Microsoft having to deal with at the negotiating table to have to fork out to have titles out here because of literally just how much Sony has strangled the industry and caused other publishers to just basically take the easy way out and be like, hey, give us this or else. And that is probably where some of this price increasing is coming from, is because Microsoft is trying to keep the software on their ecosystem because, yes, I'm not going to deny the fact that they messed up, that obviously, they don't generate as much revenue as they do the PlayStation ecosystem, and they're not as cool and hip as the PlayStation ecosystem was growing up for us all. But that's where Microsoft is doing what they have to do to keep the Xbox as a viable product, and they obviously are building a much stronger, brighter future for the brand. And regretfully, as a result of having to do that, there is going to be some price increases.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of the times currently, and as I'm sure General MLD can attest, I mean, us here in Canada, we've been used to the price hikes. It's gaming is an expensive hobby, especially up here, and PlayStation had no problem even before the price hikes in the States. They'd raise the prices of the consoles like an extra $50, PlayStation 5s, not too long after release. So not very nice. Not very
I
nice.
just want to point out, like I know that you guys are familiar with the exchange rate or whatever, but like I went shopping today. I saw like a brand new game for 89.99 Canadian.
Yep.
Like it adds up. Like we get really screwed on the exchange rate here, so it's worth pointing out. Like you can't just buy any game like just on a whim anymore. I don't know. Like you got to be a little more responsible or find some other way.
And you know
Yep.
what? That's why I made the comment about in one of my videos about PlayStation, Jim Ryan over here, like, oh, it's value destructive. Nobody likes Game Pass. It's value destructive for your greedy 1%er freaking mentality of I want all the damn money. I want to live on my little golden throne while the little peasants out here can shell out every dime that they put in with their blood, sweat, and tears, and they can help me sit on this golden throne. And not at any time, this goes back to people out there showing photos of Microsoft executives. Not at any time have I ever got the freaking the inclination from Phil Spencer that I am supporting some golden throne that he has on at home. He actually makes me feel like a human being as a consumer and not some freaking ATM that he can freaking take advantage of.
You got that right. Now, how about you, Crusader? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the recent console hike. I think it's just a Series X right now. I could be mistaken, but hey, at least
Series X.
yeah, but at least in the States, like so far, you guys seem to be all right there. But Game Pass, though, it's seeing a little bit of a tick up. Got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so like number one, I called out the price hike when PlayStation called it out. I called it out when basically everyone did it. Called it out here. I get it. We're in what's close to a recession. Technically, it's not definable as one, but it is as close to it as you're going to get. And like I get that. It's just outside of doing it like in a handful of regions, it's not a normal thing ever for across the board the prices of electronics to go up. They go down because within every couple years, your assembly lines get cheaper to produce the older circuits as newer processors and things are developed, and just it just gets cheaper to produce them. Now, granted, we are in a weird supply chain thing. But like I don't know. I have a problem with companies that can buy and sell small countries, including Sony, increasing prices of consumer goods in such a way when in the grand reality of things, it's not normal. It is not like it has happened in like a handful of regions when they've had severe economic issues, but like it's never happened across the board. And I guess we are in a recession right now, but even during like the huge recession of 2008, it didn't happen across the board. It happened in a handful of countries, and it was temporary for I think it was like 6 to 8 months, but it's very rarely a permanent thing. Like, and this also goes to Nintendo in general. We can talk about that because Nintendo has like not decreased the price of the Switch like at all since it came out. Maybe once when the OLED came out, maybe, but they just haven't. And that is we are in unusual times, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a fan of it. I don't like spending more money, period. And I can't just sit here and be like, yep, whatever. It's just not in me. I'm not going to do it. I have no problem with anyone who does, none. I just I'm not gonna. The Game Pass though. I mean, listen, that one I'm actually not as upset with. The the hardware is one thing. The Game Pass I'm actually not, because I predicted Game Pass would go. I actually predicted these exact numbers back in May, that this is what they'd go up by. Why? Because they increased the price of games to $70. Their AAA games to $70. That's a 17% increase. They increased Game Pass by 17% approximately. Now with Game Pass, it's hard to see the 17% with the regular Game Pass, because I mean it's $1. But the $2 increase to $17 is approximately it's either 13 or 17%. I can't remember which I don't feel like doing math in my head. It's either a 13 or 17% jump. And that is how much the games jumped by. And if you're launching day one games in the service, you are therefore valuing the service at a ratio to what you are charging the games for, right? So therefore, you'd expect the service to remain within that kind of equilibrium of cost ratio, right? And so I was shocked that when they announced the price of games way back when they were increasing to $70, that they didn't also announce Game Pass was increasing by the same ratio. But they have they essentially have a golden ratio of, this is what we are charging for Game Pass, and this is what we're charging for the games that are going in day one. And therefore there has to be a ratio of value between that concept, right? And they have held that value, that ratio. And this is just the mathematician in me looking at it. And so I was annoyed with the $70 increase across the board. I still, to this day, will tell you that there are games that are worth $70. There are games that are worth more than $70. Games should not be a uniform price. That is a problem our industry has. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves with the gaming industry, is that every large game is exactly the same price when they should all be competitively pricing their games and doing cost analysis to figure out what they should exactly be pricing the game at. Like something like Starfield, easily $70, hundreds of hours of time, totally expansive and ambitious and crazy. Same with like God of War and like Horizon Forbidden West and Forza and things like that, right? You have games like Redfall, and I'm not even talking about Redfall as in its the state that it came out in. It just is a smaller game. And then you have games like Ratchet and Clank or Returnal, right? Those games are not games that should launch at $70, in my opinion, right? But you look at what the industry is doing, and you get stuck in this, that if they're launching the games at $70 and then that they are going to increase the price of Game Pass to match what they raise the game prices by. Because if it's $60, they were okay with it at $15 a month, and at $70, it's going to go to $17 a month. And that just checks, right? In my head, that just how it is, right? And I think that the math checks out, and therefore I am okay with, I'm not okay with it, but it's not blood boil, it's just matching what they're already doing. So I could care less about the Game Pass price increase. It doesn't bother me.
All right, that's fair commentary on that, Crusader. Liked your take. How about you, Eric? Got any thoughts on again the Game Pass price hikes? Do you agree with the guys who are saying? Please tell me what you think here.
Yeah, obviously it was inevitable, and it makes sense for them to do it right before Starfield versus doing it last year when they didn't have shit. So then that would have been a bad precedent of like, we're gonna raise it, but we haven't given you anything. They're about to drop a giant, they're definitely their biggest exclusive or first party game they've had in day one Game Pass. So you're getting that, and obviously you've seen the improvement of like their third party, not only when they were getting the deals of like, hey, this game just came out, whether it be Scarlet Nexus or some of the past ones that came to Game Pass shortly after their release, they're getting day ones, well long, solid game. What was it? Plague's Tale of Requiem. You're getting the new Persona 3 remake or remaster, whatever it is. So you're getting major third parties jumping in there day one. Capcom's new game. So they're giving you a reason. So it going up $1 for the first time in 6 years, since it debuted, and $2 for Game Pass Ultimate. Like, that's really nothing. And a lot of us have already stacked. Like, I'm still good from my 3-year stack from 2 years ago, so I'm good still for like another year. So okay, the increase is coming. Well, I'll look for when I see those sales, and I have time to like stack more on there when those sales come along. So to push out my date even further before I even feel that impact. And they brought back the conversion. It's not 1-to-1, it's 3-to-2. So you get, instead of, for the price of 180, you'd get Game Pass Ultimate for 3 years. Now that would only get you like 2, but still, that's still a deal. So it's not that big of a issue. I know a lot of people, which I find it funny with, where I just don't understand people's. I don't know if it's a what do you call it, griff or whatever. Like, when I see, like, I feel like Red Dragon, like, every day has to, like, what is negative about Xbox today? Oh, I found something. And it was, the once every month Xbox gives you those rewards points, and they'll be the big ones. They'll give you like 2,000 points up front. They're still all through the month. They'll be given away for all different charities and give you a 500 here, 250 here, all throughout the month. But it was going from 2,000 to 1,000. It's like, oh no, they're just they're taking back the points. So look how bad they are. None of you are saying anything, and I'm like, they're still giving me free money. Like, what?
I mean, it
And he
does
was like, well,
suck.
they're getting your data for less now. And I'm like, versus who? I use Google Chrome and I get nothing for it. People think Bing's bad. I'm like, have you used Bing like lately? It's literally the same thing. And Google has had their own issues on their searches on questionable of like stuff they've highlighted. When you're searching for some stuff that doesn't, it's hard to find. So it's I literally search something, it comes up the same. It's whatever. But just some of that, and in PlayStation, and people are trying to say, like, well, PlayStation gives you points. Man, it takes forever to try to get PlayStation those codes, and you have to, and the other thing, there's not an equivalent. You would have to have PS Plus or whatever, or you'd actually have to, go make a bunch of purchases to get the games that they're going to give you points to play. Or they do this weird thing where they have you solve a riddle of figure out what game this is and go play it. We're not going to tell you what it is. We're going to, give you a riddle about it, and then maybe you'll think of it. It's just dumb, but people kind of losing their mind about this, price hike. It's negligible, and it was the first one since, they actually debuted the whole Game Pass, Game Pass to begin with. So, but yeah, it sucks that they're having to go up in price for the actual console. But again, we're seeing record inflation. Shit just keeps, getting ridiculous. So at a certain point, they have to adjust for those things. I guess the Xbox One S, the 351 doesn't seem that bad anymore since everything else is going up. It makes sense now why that one's 350 and that you didn't make that one 299. But yeah, I mean, it's a good time to make the price hike, just like others had stated. Then they can't come back and say, well, it was because of Activision. I'm like, well, technically, it was a 50. There was no certainty that they, whatever this answer, whatever the decision is this week, they would have no way of knowing. So, and that was before the trial was even over. So, got to do it at a certain point. So you might as well do it right before probably their biggest IP and biggest drop they are probably going to have in the foreseeable next couple of years, probably nothing's going to be on the level of what Starfield is. You're hopefully they are with like Hellblade and stuff like that. But I mean, if this is on the level of like Skyrim, like this makes sense to do it right before it, because people are still going to sign up and play. But yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But it sucks that it has to go up, but makes sense for it to go up at this point, especially when eggs are $6-7. So it's really not that bad of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can stomach the. I mean, it was inevitable, anyways. The Game Pass price hike. I mean, $1, at least in the States, anyways. Look, I get it. I mean, it's a little pricier up here in Canada, but it's still a deal. Honestly, in comparison to many other things, I would say the console one hurts a little more, but I mean, otherwise, I can take the Game Pass one. Just, I mean, it is what it is. It's a sign of the times. But honestly, guys, lots of good commentary from everyone on the panel. Love the thoughts. And guys in the chat, you guys rock too. Lots of energy. Love you being here. Again, smash that like button, guys, and sub to the channel. Love to keep you around. Love to keep you around. And hey, share it out. Let everybody know that we are live as we're going into our next topic. Guys, anything else to add before we move on? Yes, no? All right. All right. Well, with that said, yeah, why don't we move on to our last topic? And it seems like Microsoft have made a deal with a studio, well, familiar with big Xbox IP. Studio People Can Fly, the Polish studio, shared out an agreement between the two to develop a new game based on property rights owned by the publisher, that being Microsoft, Xbox, with the code name of said project being Project Maverick. Interesting name there. Interesting. I wonder if that reads into anything. Now, I gotta say, I'm curious what could be cooking up here, as I'm a big fan of the studio. I think they've made quite a few interesting games over the past few years. And again, they've teamed up with Xbox before. They seem, pretty chummy. Now, Crusader, my favorite internet super sleuth. I know you like digging into things there. What do you think of this newly revealed, like, secret project? What do you make of it?
Yeah, so number one, I'm pretty sure Jez Corden weighed in and said he doesn't think it's Gears of War. They have worked on Gears of War in the past. They made Judgment. Whether you like Judgment or not is up to you. I thought it was very odd. I enjoyed it. I didn't like it as much as the other Gears games. I mean, it played fine, but I didn't like the whole weird star system. But like mechanically, it played great.
Mhm.
I really loved Outriders. Loved it. If they
Mhm.
do another expansion for Outriders, I'll be there. But so there was a budget between 30 to $50 million USD for a AAA game, and that threw some people through a little bit of a tizzy. And they're like, how
Mhm.
can you make a AAA game on that nowadays? Well, that's I did some research into this. Well, number one, they're a Polish studio, so there is a cost differential in like what people get paid there versus what they get paid here, because part of it is simply due to the difference in cost of living, right? Salaries are different. Like this is something a lot of people don't think about. Salaries are different globally based on how much it costs for rent and things like that. Rents vary wildly city to city in the United States, let alone United States versus other countries. And so like you have to take that into account. And Poland has a lower cost of living just in general. So they make less because that's how a lot of global companies work. Like a lot of companies, if you work from home and you live in the center of the US versus like working in Seattle for Amazon, you will get paid less working from home than other people who do the same job as you, because Amazon's going to pay you based on where you live, not based on your job. They're going to pay you on a combination of where you live and on your job title. And so that's a factor of it. But if you really want to take it home that a great AAA game can be made between 30 to 50 million, 2019's Control had a budget of 30 million. Now, people are like, but Crusader, that was a game that released in 2019. It started development years before. Okay, fine. Control 2, which is in its pre-development stage, has a budget of $50 million, 54 million USD right now. It's about that, right? And Control 2 is going to be likely a Game of the Year contender. The first game was excellent. Loved it. So a game can be made on that budget. An excellent game can be made on that budget. We have some problems in the industry with ballooning budgets and workforce and how everything like that's working. It's unsustainable as it is. But I'm quite excited for whatever they're making. I'm hoping it's a third-person shooter. I'd like to see some more third-person shooters under Microsoft's wings. And I'm not talking just third-person action adventure games. I'm just I'd like more games like like Gears of War, or Outriders, or Control, or like anything. You come up with a third-person shooter game, and I'd love to see more of it. You know what I mean? I'd love for them to take a Microsoft IP and make like a looter shooter out of it. I'm a big looter shooter guy. Everyone people should know that about me.
Now, some people are wondering though, like, is this a new IP or is this like I mean, judging from the wording, right? Like, is it like an already like something Microsoft already owns IP, or is it new?
Don't know. It is an IP that Microsoft owns. That doesn't mean it is new. It means that Microsoft is gonna. It could mean that Microsoft will own the IP at the end of it. It could mean that it was something that someone at Obsidian pitched, and like Obsidian owns the IP, but it never got made. And now, people can fly are coming in, and they're gonna take a swing at this IP that was made internally. Does that make sense? It could be. It could be anything that they have already. It could be like Crimson Skies for all I know. It could be, or it could be something totally new that Microsoft's going to own at the end. Because Microsoft does typically like to own the IPs that it makes with third-party publishers. If it doesn't plan to ever use them again in the future, it had a tendency in the past to sell them. I don't think they will do that anymore because of Game Pass, right? Because there is a value in owning those IPs and not selling them to the original creators. Like, for example, they sold Alan Wake back to Remedy. They owned Alan Wake, right? But you'll notice that they didn't sell Quantum Break back. They still own Quantum Break. And there's a reason they still own Quantum Break, because it's very valuable for Game Pass. It's why they fought to get most companies will, when the license for a game runs out, oops, sorry, it's gone. That's why they fought to get the licensing back for Quantum Break, because it is a valuable game to have in their service permanently, right? And so, like, they own Ori. They're never going to sell Ori. Moon Studios, if Moon Studios never wants to make another Ori game, and Microsoft decides they're never going to make another Ori game, it doesn't matter. They'll own that IP forever. That IP will sit within Microsoft until someone wants to do something with it, or it'll just go cold, right? And that's just how it's going to be. There's no reason for Microsoft to ever sell any of its IPs that it has, because Game Pass makes their IP valuable forever. Game Pass and the digital backwards compatibility, right? Being able to sell a game digitally forever, no matter what console, because like the next console has to be backwards compatible because Game Pass kind of demands it. So we know that things are going to be like backwards compatible forever, and they can continue to sell things forever, right? That's why they put effort into the backwards compatibility program, because fiscally it made sense for them. And so whatever IP it is, they own it. That's basically all we know. I could see it being Gears of War. You just didn't know anything for certain. I could see it being Gears of War. They worked on it in the past. It would make perfect sense.
I mean, everybody talks about a Gears of War collection. I mean, would they do like? Could that be something?
I'd play it. It could be something like that. I don't know if it necessarily would. But that could be really cool.
Possibly. I can't remember. Did People Can Fly? Did they pop up on that acquisition list? I think they did.
They may have. That's also a trickier acquisition to make. They are a publicly traded company. Not that obviously not that can't be done looking at Activision Blizzard right now, but like, yeah, I mean that would make sense. People Can Fly though. It's very interesting because there are companies right now that growing and investing themselves, right? Like Sega just bought Rovio. So is Sega really on the market, or are they expanding themselves? Could they be bought? Sure. Would they necessarily want to sell at this point? Who knows? People Can Fly, I believe, has also been expanding its studios. I think they have something like 7 games in development. 6 games in development. And that's kind of crazy. This is one of them. I'd have to look. I know they have at least 4. I thought they had something like 6 though. Because I think they have 2 with Square Enix, 1 with Microsoft, and 1 they're publishing themselves.
Yeah.
So,
I just find them a very interesting developer.
yeah, they are, and I like. We're seeing the rise of several like new kind of like larger publishers like just kind of come on the field, right? Like People Can Fly looks like they're going to try to be one of them, right? That like they're trying to grow themselves and become a larger splash on the game industry. That's why they're forming all these deals and like producing all these games. They want their names to kind of to ring out, right? We've seen that with Focus Entertainment. Focus Entertainment was like a no one, but then they released like 8 bangers in a row. You know what I mean? And they're releasing the Warhammer Space Marine game, right?
Mhm.
And so like it's People Can Fly to me is one of those studios that's kind of like they were just a studio a while back, but now they're trying to become a publishing entity and a larger development entity on the field. Bungie was basically going to be that, but then they were bought. Focus Entertainment's doing that. CD Projekt Red is doing that. CD Projekt Red bought a bunch of people, and they have a bunch of games in development. They have like 2 Witcher games, the future Cyberpunk game, the Cyberpunk DLC, some other weird things that I don't think we know exactly what they are. And so, but yeah, People Can Fly is really interesting because they are kind of a studio that's in like an evolutionary phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are certainly growing at an interesting pace. Certainly a developer to keep an eye on. I'm just very curious what they got signed on to make. Project Maverick, I have no idea. I'm assuming it's I'm just going to assume that it's an IP that Xbox already owns, like it's an older IP. I couldn't tell you what it is. That's the thing.
It's a weird name, right? Like Project Maverick, that kind of almost screams to me Crimson Skies, right? Like
Yeah.
Maverick. But then Maverick can also mean like a greener but like hero character, right? Like a younger hero character, right? It's the definition of the word Maverick.
Yeah, and then you look at the developer itself, and it's made like again third and first person shooters that are maybe gritty's not the right word, but like it's definitely because didn't they make Bulletstorm as well?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
They did.
Yeah, Bullets. So I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a few IP I could think of that you know that could Microsoft could lend out. I just don't know if it would be something like a Halo spinoff or something like that.
That
I
would
think
be
it would
really cool.
It would be very interesting. I'm not lying. I'm just wondering. I have to take a look at the list of IP.
I'd love for more studios to take a swing at the Halo as a property, right? Like I don't really want studios taking a swing at like mainline Halo games, right? Like I don't. I would really like the FPS style games to be done in house by like 343 and id Software. You know, like really have like a control over them. But like imagine like a flood horror game, right? Like almost like Dead Space.
Yes.
Or things like Halo Wars, or or like Halo would be could be a really cool like third person action adventure game too, besides just being a first person arena shooter. You know what I mean? And like there's so much potential in that IP that it can be anything. And I would love for them to be like, yeah, we're making a spin-off third person shooter Halo title based on a completely new team of Spartans, right? Like we're not trying to be like That'd be like, we're not trying to make like the next mainline Halo. We're trying to do something different, like almost like an ODST. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That would be pretty cool. Let's see, moving down the list. Now, Centurion Pal, I know you've been steadily listening in here. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see this just get kind of brought up out of nowhere. We just had, their showcase not too long ago, like a month ago, and again, we're starting to hear of new projects being announced or, get leaked. What do you think of this People Can Fly deal? I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's like some kind of new IP or again something that from Microsoft's back catalog? What could it be?
Man, I've been sitting here listening to you guys, and I've been just really taking it all in because I mean, where could we really start on the Xbox IPs? I mean, I'll be honest, I've been keeping up with the Activision Blizzard stuff for so long that it is great to finally start talking about what could be once again. I mean, Microsoft has a lot of games under their umbrella. It's really good to see that they're starting to have these partnerships. At least if I could say, I'm just hoping they do something with the Gears of War franchise. At least that's my thing. If it's going to be a first party studio IP, or at least something dealing with one of the first party studio IPs. I know somebody just mentioned like Halo. I'm going to be absolutely honest. I really at this point feel that Halo really definitely needs to go back to the drawing board, and maybe it's just a little bit too soon, especially coming off of the heels of what was created with Halo
Remember,
Infinite.
This game's not going to be out for like 5 years. Whatever they're making is not it's a AAA game that is just entering pre-production. So like it's not going to be out until like 2027, 2028.
Maybe then it could probably be a good time for that. But what other titles has People Can Fly been known for?
Bulletstorm and Outriders. That's about it.
Bulletstorm, Outriders, and Gears of War Judgment are like the 3 big ones. Here, I'll get the full list.
Okay, it's kind of funny. I own all 3 of these games, and I've really got to take the damn time to play them. I've heard a lot of people talk about Bulletstorm, Outriders. I really do feel that, regretfully kind of, feels almost like Square Enix may have thrown them under the bus on that one. Cause you know how Square Enix is, they're always willing to point the finger at somebody else other than themselves. Gears of War Judgment. Definitely, it definitely leans towards the idea that they could be working on something Gears of War. Purely because, I mean, they've already had experience in doing it. It would be nice to potentially see another spinoff of the Gears of War franchise, but anybody's guess at this time. That's where I've just been really wanting to get into more of the articles like you guys point out, like what could possibly be coming out of Xbox, because it is time for the Activision Blizzard stuff to kind of quit taking up at least my damn life.
Do you want the list of stuff they made?
Oh, Painkiller.
Yeah, they made Painkiller. They helped port the original Gears of War. They made Bulletstorm, Gears of War Judgment. They co-developed with Epic Fortnite Save the World, the single player mode for Fortnite.
Interesting.
Outriders, and they have 2 on Wikipedia. There's 2 listed games, but I know in their list they had more games at their more code names at their company. The untitled Xbox Studio game, codename Project Maverick, and an untitled Square Enix game.
I mean, it screams to me a few things. I mean, if it's not a new IP and if it's something they already own, it's either I'm getting the sense that it's either something Halo related or I'm just going to take a stab at it because, again, they need like a variety of games, of genres. It could be something Crimson Skies related, or I'm going to just throw it out there, guys, something like a new line of like a BattleTech game. I'm just going to throw it out there, like a new mech something or other game. It doesn't have to be Mech Assault, but something along that lines. I don't know. I could potentially see that.
You know what we haven't mentioned? because they said I don't believe it was a title. It's a title owned by Microsoft, is what they specifically said. That could include Bethesda IP.
Oh yes, that is.
Now that would
yes.
be by negotiation, right? Because Bethesda's a limited integration company, so they do have control over their IP. Like, In Exile can't just come in and make it. In fact, Double Fine couldn't just come in and make an In Exile like an IP from In Exile. They actually have to negotiate internally, even within Xbox Game Studios. But it could be like something like a, who knows, like a Quake or a Doom or a
They could.
Rage, or weird things like that. I would love it to be a spin-off game of some franchise though, and it just be different from what that franchise really is. I really like Halo Wars for doing that. Just in general, we're not even talking necessarily about Halo here, but just Halo Wars being a weird spin-off of Halo in a different genre. Love it. Gears Tactics with Gears of War. Love the concept, right? So I'd love it to be something like that.
Yeah. Apparently, they also worked on Unreal Tournament and Infinity Blade, which is interesting.
Okay.
And keep in mind, another person brought up Wolfenstein as well.
Oh, Wolfenstein would be cool. So, and for record, just because I'm looking at their company profile, they have 7 studio locations globally. And they have over 600 employees.
Oh yeah, they're pretty big.
Yeah, they are a fairly large studio. Because I think they've been acquiring people in the last, acquiring and opening new studios recently, like small studios that no one's ever heard of. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I believe they are one of Poland's largest publicly listed companies.
Well, keep in mind, I mean, it was I remember hearing not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, that again, Microsoft was very chatty with a bunch of Polish developers there.
Yeah,
I know that. So there is interest. There is certainly interest.
The price alone will be very attractive, given, like you guys said before, the cost of living is lower there, so they can get them at a relative bargain.
Let me look see, because they're publicly listed. Let me look to see what they're publicly what they're I'll take a look at that.
Well, while you're looking there, Crusader, MLD, since you just spoke up, I mean, what's your take on this? What do you think this deal is about? Is it new IP or something that they already own? I mean, again, I'm really excited to hear about this. I really like People Can Fly.
Oh yeah, I do too. I played the Gears Judgment. I like their take on the lore. They did a lot of was it early Locust War the cutscenes they did. It fleshed out the universe a bit more that the later games couldn't really do because it's so late in the Locust War. I enjoyed that. I played Bulletstorm. That was a fun game. I tried Outriders. Wasn't for me, but I think the foundation was pretty solid. So these guys know what they're doing. They've been around for a while, and as you guys pointed out, they're a big studio now. They've obviously grown over the years. So I think it's a good deal. Xbox, they're clearly diversifying here. So they're not just doing acquisitions here. They're growing their own internal teams, and they're making these published deals fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted to see from them more. So it's a great studio, and they clearly have a long track record working with Xbox here. My personal gut feeling, though, is Gears of War, but it's think of like a Halo Reach kind of game. It's like it'd be a prequel. My guess they would do a pre-Emergence Day game. So it'd be the coalition of the COG versus the other governments, because there's this bit in the lore. It's a big global conflict over emulsion, because they used it as a fuel source, a lucrative fuel source. And I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in that part of the lore, and they could easily make a game where the campaign is like the COG is fighting the other global superpowers. They come out on top, but Emergence Day happens at the end of the game, and that's kind of where it ends, kind of thing. Kind of like how Halo Reach ends with the beginning of Halo 1. And People Can Fly, I think that's up their alley because they've worked on Gears of War in the past, but where people people say what they say about Judgment, I feel like they can easily learn from those mistakes. They can look at what the game was, what people are saying about that, take those lessons and apply it to a new game in the future. And given like they can just keep it human on human kind of gameplay. They don't have to worry about like designing locust and enemy varieties and enemy types. They can just keep it human on human and focus on making a really good campaign in that point in the story. Now, my guess is that they want to just ramp up Gears of War again, because like we're gonna get Gears 6 in what 2-3 years? Who knows? There's a Netflix animated series in the making, and part of me feels like they want to do more. They want to put more content out there, and the coalition they can only make so much so fast. So you want a second studio in to make a Gears game to drum up that kind of interest. And even though it'd be a prequel, it still will capitalize on the momentum that the Netflix show will generate and Gears 6 would generate. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3. I think it would go a long way to revitalize the series. So that's my own gut feeling. They're going with what they know, what they've done in the past, and learn from it. And and I think that's the best thing I could think of right now. Because looking at Xbox's other games that they can make a third-person shooter out of, nothing else really comes to mind. So yeah, that's my gut feeling. But overall, it's a great move. I'm glad Xbox secured this deal.
All right. Yeah, no, I think so likewise. Now, let's see here. Shockley, buddy. Again, I'm curious on your thoughts. Again, People Can Fly, very interesting developer. Creators of Bulletstorm, Gears Judgment, and a few others. Even Painkiller, very well-known IP, very beloved. What do you think of Microsoft cozying up with this developer? And I don't know, what's your stab at? What do you think they could be working on here?
I think they would be. I think it would, not that it would be like exactly like Outriders, but I think it would be kind of like a live service type deal. I don't know who has like maybe the Bulletstorm IP, but I don't think they do. But I don't know. That would be cool if they somehow got that and could make a sequel to that one, since that one's probably their best well-known or most beloved game that they've made. But Outriders was solid. They just needed some balance. Well, mainly they needed servers because they were not. Square kind of set them up to fail with, they were obviously Square did that deal to, the game wasn't getting that much traction before it. I would hear like some gaming podcasts like mention, hey, did you play that demo? And then like, hey, it's kind of like Gears. And then I didn't hear much about it until they made that announcement. And that was their issue. So many players were having I think Cog was a big one where he's like, I've just been waiting for my gear to come back to me. It's been gone. I've put in all these hours and people just got fed up. So, but they had kind of something special with it. There was some balancing issues. So maybe they probably needed some more support, which Microsoft, I'm sure, can provide. Because I think I did the whatever class. It's kind of like almost like a tank in that one, but then turn out one of the classes kind of super overpowered than all the others. I think it was like the specialist or whatever it was, or I forget which one it was. It kind of remind me of like the Division. There was like one class that was like kind of super OP. But yeah, I think they had something special with that, and plus that would kind of go with what in line, with what Microsoft probably would want with Game Pass if they're signing, a deal. Hey, can you do this type of game for Game Pass? Because obviously they have plenty of studios that are going to be making single player type games. So they're going to want to make some of these, which is probably the Contraband one they did with them. That one's probably, I think they've already said that so, as much, that one's going to be like a either co-op or
1 to
I guess
4
something
player
online.
co-op.
Yeah. So it makes sense that they'd probably go in this wheelhouse since People Can Fly already kind of did that with Gears had some co-op. It wasn't like online or always online or whatever, but it had that component in it. And then you had People Can Fly where they had, like you saw it when you actually, it was a new IP, so people weren't really all in on it, but and it wasn't getting that much traction. But when people were playing it, people were having a blast to a certain point where shit just hit the fan. So I think if they can give them good structure and support, whereas I think that was the major issue with Square. But it is interesting that when people were saying, well, look, People Can Fly, look at Game Pass, they put it in there and you guys didn't buy the game, so this is all because of Game Pass. And I'm like, well, Square said they were happy, so they were fine. Sounds like it was like this whole ScarJo deal with Disney where they wrote a contract years ago, but it didn't take into account Disney Plus day one revenue. So they made that deal last minute. I'm sure there was no Game Pass in that contract. And sure, there was some sales cannibalized, but people wouldn't have been. That thing had so much PR, just all over Twitter, just article after article that was not being written about it before that announcement, but it was constant. That and just free advertisement with people talking about it, just like gamers. But you notice who they're not making their next game with. And that's Square. They went straight to the source to put their game day one in Game Pass. So obviously they like what they saw, but they just weren't getting the cut. Now they're getting the bag. So, but yeah, I think it'll be a good fit.
All right. Well said there, Shockley. Yeah, again, I'm curious to see what comes of this. As Crusader alluded to earlier, this is something very, very early on, early production. We won't see this for, well, a couple of years in the very least. But I'm excited. Again, very competent developer and just a lot of things to look forward to. Again, we got a lot of other games to focus on that we know are already in development. And again, lots of games coming out. Hell, I mean, Starfield alone, was it 2 months from now? Very exciting.
1st, I have taken the vacation day.
Oh boy. Damn. That's dedication, my friend. That's dedication.
Yeah. Did you take it on the right day? You doing the early edition?
I am doing the early edition because I have that Monday off too.
Dang.
Labor Day in the United States.
Might have to do that.
I'm doing a 4-day weekend.
Wait, is it on Labor Day?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Then that's I get that day off. Okay, sweet. That's gonna be a 4-day weekend for me.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Lucky guys. Yeah, I haven't even really looked at it. I mean, I'll be getting it early too because I got the Constellation edition. Yeah, I gotta take a look, see at my schedule there, but I'm excited, really excited to dive into that one. But guys, any other comments before we start closing things off? Yes, no? Okay, guys, I think that about does it for tonight. Wow, really awesome chat from across the panel. I gotta say, every single one of the guys here had some really awesome takes. We covered the Xbox FTC updates, and it looks like we'll be getting something tomorrow. Fingers crossed there. Console and Game Pass price hikes, and something going on between Xbox and People Can Fly. And to everyone that tuned in tonight, as I've said during the show, thank you for stopping by. It's always greatly appreciated. And if you enjoyed our banter tonight, then please consider dropping a like, subbing to the channel, and hey, share this episode out if you'd like, because hey, we like to be everywhere. Going on to the outros now, starting with Crusader. Pal, hey, really awesome stuff tonight. Where can all these lovely people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Crusader3456 on Twitter. And you can find me at Crusader _3456 on Threads. I will be on both. I don't find that it is safe to exist on any one social media anymore after the rate limiting Armageddon. That was Twitter. A couple. What was that? That was like last weekend. Yeah. So I'm not big into that. So find me everywhere, and I will exist everywhere as long as the thing exists. But yeah, good shows. This is a good talk. It's good to be back. I was gone for 2 weeks. Felt weird not doing this on Sunday.
Same. I kind of feel guilty too, but it just, that's the way that things were, right? So sometimes you have to be away, unfortunately. But hey, we appreciate you being here, pal. We appreciate you. Moving on next, Centurion. Buddy, hey, I thought you had a great talk tonight, as per usual. Where can all the lovely people tuning in, listening in, follow you at?
Well, guys, yeah, it was definitely a fun conversation and loved listening to everybody and taking it all in. For those interested in finding me, you can locate me at Centurion1307, Xbox Live, Twitter, YouTube, all those fun social media places, including Threads. And you could also find me on Gaming Beyond the Box 2 hours before the start of TXR. And you can also find me right here on TXR every Sunday night.
All right, short and sweet. Very nice. Well said. Moving on down the list, Eric Shockley. Buddy, hey, I loved your input tonight from across the topic range. Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at Shock Nero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show. Getting a good recap from our holiday in between. So hopefully we get some good news this week. Get to find out that our Game Pass subscriptions become even more valuable. Hopefully. But yeah, we'll see you next summer.
Yeah, that would be one thing, right? That'd be a big increase for sure there. Lots of value. We shall see, though. We shall see. And of course, up next, the General MLD. Buddy, hey, I thought you had an awesome show yourself. Great points tonight. Where can everybody find you?
Thank you. You guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, Gamertag Ghost MLD. Yeah, you see me playing the Ori games now. But hoping we all wake up tomorrow to some good news, if tomorrow is in fact the day. But yeah, we'll see. Next Sunday should be pretty interesting one way or another.
I concur. And yeah, guys, you can find me on YouTube at Invader Gaming. Obviously, I haven't been as active recently, but hey, check back with me in a few short weeks. I will be pumping out content if nonstop if things go according to plan. Looking forward to it. But yeah, guys, love the show tonight, and we look forward to seeing you all here next Sunday. Later, everyone. It's been really awesome.